October and November of 2025, two Japanese films grossed $828 million at the worldwide box office. Their combined budget? $24 million. Meanwhile, Hollywood lost $261 million across three productions. This would have seemed impossible 10 years ago, and yet, this is today's reality. To understand how we got here, we need to go back almost 20 years. On May 2nd, 2008, a red and gold suit of armor took over screens around the world. Robert Downey Jr. played Tony Stark for the first time in Iron Man. He was an actor rebuilding his career after years of very public personal struggles. A studio so desperate it had mortgaged its most valuable licenses just to finance this film. The budget was $140 million, and the worldwide gross was $585 million. But that is not why this film changed everything. It changed everything because it actually worked. Tony Stark was flawed but aspirational. An arrogant man, broken by circumstance, who chooses to become a real hero. The audience wanted him to win. And above all, the film was not trying to lecture you. It was entertaining you. But Marvel did not stop there. After Iron Man's credits, a short, mysterious scene opened a door to something far greater. A shared cinematic universe. A secret roadmap for Hollywood. The plan was crystal clear. Build each hero through their own film. Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. Each release expanded the universe. Each post-credits scene planted the next seed. And everything culminated in May 2012 with The Avengers. $1.5 billion. The audience had waited 4 years. When the heroes finally assembled on screen, it was not just suits and superpowers anymore. It was the conclusion of a promise. The audience was emotionally invested. And that gets paid for in cash. Hollywood had mastered the art of telling stories that captured both minds and wallets. The Hangover, Fast and Furious, The Dark Knight, Transformers, The Hunger Games. Hundreds of millions in profit, film after film. They respected their audience. They gave people heroes worth cheering for, stories worth caring about. And in return, they printed money. While Hollywood dominated, anime was quietly building something. If you were a kid in the late 1990s or the early 2000s, you might remember Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, or Naruto. These series taught an entire generation of Western kids something essential. A story can unfold over weeks, months, years. Characters grow. Consequences are real. Most importantly, animation could tell serious stories with real stakes, real loss, real emotion. This was not a Saturday morning cartoon. It was a narrative form in its own right. But anime remained niche, a passionate subculture, slightly misunderstood, waiting in the shadows. That patience was about to change everything. In July 2012, Sword Art Online arrived. A teenager named Kirito finds himself trapped inside a virtual reality game with thousands of other players. The rule was simple. Dying in the game means dying in real life. Sword Art Online proved that anime could merge genres, action, romance, science fiction, and gaming culture. Western millennials who had grown up with consoles immediately recognized themselves in this story. It was not just Japanese culture anymore. It was global geek culture. Then, 2013 arrived, and with it, a cultural earthquake called Attack on Titan. The first episode starts in relative peace. Minutes later, a giant humanoid creature kicks a hole through a protective wall, and the townspeople are devoured alive. Attack on Titan was dark and brutal, and politically complex, wrapped in a mystery that unfolded across multiple seasons. The animation was fluid and dynamic, with color palettes that shifted with the dramatic tension. Suddenly, anime was not just for kids anymore. It was for everyone. Within months, it became the most talked about anime in over a decade. Adults who had grown up with Dragon Ball Z were discovering that the medium could match their maturity. Over 140 million manga volumes sold worldwide. Crunchyroll reported record viewership across multiple regions simultaneously. Japanese publisher Kodansha recorded its first sales increase in 18 years. Attack on Titan was not just a success, it was a gateway. Millions of people who had never watched a single episode of anime started with this one, and they never left. Then came Demon Slayer in 2019. Tanjiro loses his family, slaughtered by demons. His sister, Nezuko, the only survivor, is turned into a demon herself. What makes Demon Slayer radically different from a simple revenge story is that Tanjiro feels deep empathy for the demons he slays. The series takes the time to give a compelling backstory to almost every antagonist, and wraps it all in animation of cinematic quality, with dynamic camera work and perfect musical synchronization. By episode 19, Demon Slayer had broken the internet. People who had never touched anime were sharing clips across every platform. The manga sold over 80 million copies in 2020 alone. Streaming records shattered. Netflix was investing heavily in anime. Conventions were exploding. Cosplay went mainstream. TikTok made anime aesthetics cool and accessible. This was not an underground scene anymore. It was global. Now, let's talk about what Hollywood was doing during all of this. After the triumph of Avengers Endgame, Marvel's response was as simple as it was catastrophic. Produce more, faster, and inject political messaging into every project. Between 2021 and 2023, no fewer than 12 different series were released on Disney+, all connected to the cinematic universe. Being an MCU fan was no longer fun. It was a part-time job, and quality was collapsing in real time. Characters felt hollow. Stories were predictable. Everywhere, in every film and every series, political messaging seeped through more and more visibly. Forced representation, didactic dialogue, narrative arcs that felt more like lectures than actual adventures. Creators seemed more focused on ticking boxes than on making you feel anything. Disney's Snow White became a lightning rod for controversy. Contested aesthetic choices, a message delivered with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer, and a lead actress whose public statements rubbed audiences the wrong way. What should have been a modern reimagining of a classic became a symbol of a Hollywood completely disconnected from its audience. The result was an estimated $133 million in losses. One of the biggest flops of 2025. Tron Ares followed the same path. Tron Legacy in 2010 had proven the franchise had real potential. But after years of politically overloaded films, audiences no longer trusted the studio. The distrust had set in. The estimated loss was $85 million. The franchise is likely dead. The same pattern repeats everywhere. Terminator, Indiana Jones, John Wick, franchise after franchise. And every time, rather than questioning their own creative choices, Hollywood producers pointed the finger at the audience. They never looked in the mirror. Look at the visuals. Compare Marvel Phase 1 films with recent productions. Colors have become dull, washed out, gray. Visual effects, despite budgets in the hundreds of millions, look less convincing than they did 15 years ago. Soulless. That's the word that keeps coming up in audience reviews. Without soul. And while Hollywood was burning hundreds of millions to produce these results, the 2020 pandemic was sending millions of people home with free time and an internet connection. Those people turned to anime. And what they found was not childish cartoons. It was deep, morally complex storytelling, with heroes and villains that sparked discussions long after an episode ended. That is when Demon Slayer came back with Mugen Train in October 2020. It had a budget of around $16 million, and it earned $453 million at the box office. This film proved three things. First, anime can dominate cinema screens worldwide. Second, there is a massive global audience for this content. Third, the television-to-film model works perfectly, as long as you have built the audience's emotional investment beforehand. Hollywood watched this happen and learned absolutely nothing. In September and October 2025, two films rewrote the rules once again. Demon Slayer Infinity Castle was released in September 2025. It earned $650 million at the box office, making it the highest grossing anime film in the history of cinema. This film marked the beginning of the end for a franchise whose fans had been following its characters for 7 years. Breathtaking visuals, unforgettable music, and characters audiences had watched grow for nearly a decade. The box office explosion was not a surprise. It was a certainty. The producers decided to split the finale into 3 separate films, 3 opportunities to capitalize on a demand that had already been proven. Then came Chainsaw Man movie, Raz Arc, in October 2025. The first season in 2022 had already established a massive worldwide audience. The film did not need to convince anyone. It just needed to deliver. The first half moves far away from the chaos of the original series. It follows a romance developing between Denji and Reze. Simple scenes, subtle humor in line with the character, and a piano score that is soft and powerful at the same time. This calculated stillness contrasts absolutely with Hollywood's obsessive need to fill every silence with noise and gratuitous spectacle. Then the second half snaps into place. The explosive action sequences the series is known for a return in full force, the two halves weaving together masterfully. The result was $158 million on a budget of $4 million. It was the third largest opening for an adult-rated anime film in history. Social media flooded with reactions, and audiences returned multiple times. So how does anime guarantee its success before even stepping into theaters? They don't gamble. They don't bet $300 million on an untested concept and hope it lands. They build, they prove, and only then do they go to the cinema. It all starts with manga. These Japanese comics are published in weekly or monthly magazines. Readers vote with their money. A manga that does not find its audience gets canceled quickly. Brutal, but efficient. Only stories with a real audience survive. A popular manga then gets an anime adaptation, usually 12 to 24 episodes. Total cost, $2 to $3 million, sometimes less. If the anime explodes to the point of going viral worldwide, producers move to the next step, the big screen. But at this point, they are not making a film for an unknown audience. They are making a film for a hungry audience that has already demonstrated massive interest globally. Fans have followed around 8 hours of storytelling. They are attached to the characters, invested in the story. Watching the film is not just a want anymore. It is a visceral need. When you can produce that film for a fraction of what Hollywood spends, have it marketed for free by deeply invested fans, and generate returns far above the Hollywood average, you do not just have a successful movie. You have a capital efficiency monopoly in the film industry. And anime does not stop there. Merchandising. Anime has excelled at this for decades and at a scale the West has not matched. Lottery systems, limited-time franchise cafes, intricately crafted figurines and collector accessories. Music. The 2 major anime films of autumn 2025 featured some of Japan's biggest artists composing their themes. Songs that capture the soul of the film, go viral, generate millions of streams, and create yet another revenue stream. Chainsaw Man had 12 different ending themes for its first season, 1 per episode, each by a different artist, each matching the emotional tone of that specific episode. That is music used as a storytelling tool, not as background noise. And then there is the flywheel. The manga proves the story. The anime expands the audience. The film generates the big box office numbers. Merchandising creates sustained revenue. Music adds another income stream. Cosplay and fan content provide free marketing. Every element amplifies the others. What is fascinating is that Hollywood invented this model. The MCU from 2008 to 2019 was exactly this. Individual films tested characters, built emotional investment, then collective events capitalized on years of storytelling. For 11 years, it was the most profitable franchise in history. Then they abandoned it. Marvel flooded Disney Plus with mandatory viewing. They turned fandom into homework. They made everything so interconnected that you could not miss anything. They broke the model that had made them billions. Anime looked at MCU phases 1, 2, and 3 and said, "We will take that." And they perfected it. Why does their execution work better? Because they remember what stories are for. Let's talk about emotion. Real, sincere, unironic emotion. Because where Hollywood retreats, anime advances. Demon Slayer. Tanjiro faces overwhelming odds. He doesn't joke. He doesn't deflect the gravity of the moment with a one-liner. He digs deep. He remembers his family, their faces, their voices, their absence. Then he pushes through the pain, and you feel it with him. Compare that with Hollywood. Every major emotional moment is systematically undercut by a poorly placed joke. A character faces the death of someone they love, an ironic quip to lighten the mood, a scene of intense vulnerability, a humorous beat to signal that none of this should be taken too seriously. This phenomenon even has a name: bathos. A sudden shift from something noble or important to something trivial or ordinary. It has become an addiction in contemporary Hollywood. When every major emotion is smothered by humor, the viewer walks away untouched, disconnected, indifferent. Why does Hollywood do this? Because emotional honesty is risky. Sincere emotion can feel cringe if it is not carried with total conviction. Hollywood protects itself with irony. They signal that they know this is silly, so you cannot criticize them for taking it seriously. Anime commits fully, and audiences respond. While Hollywood reached for washed-out, muted color palettes, anime exploited the full potential of IMAX screens. Colors are intentional: warm tones for hope and safety, cool tones for danger and dread. Palettes shift with the emotional temperature of the scene. Hollywood is afraid of looking too comic book, so everything gets filtered, grayed out, made safe. This is not a budget issue. Demon Slayer's per-episode budget is a fraction of what Marvel spends on a single Disney Plus episode. This is about giving artists time, about respecting craft, about actually caring about the result. People pay to go to the cinema for a simple reason. They want to escape, to experience emotions safely, to see heroism and triumph, to explore worlds different from their own, to feel something genuine, to be entertained, not lectured. Hollywood stopped delivering that. Instead, you get a moral lesson, a predictable story arc, checked boxes, forgettable music, disappointing visual effects, and the regret of having spent your time and money. Anime stepped in to fill that void. No apparent political agenda. Stories and characters that engage your mind. Universes radically different from our own reality. Music that finds its way into your playlists. You walk out of an anime film satisfied. You got what you paid for. You escaped. Either Hollywood course corrects and spends the next several years winning back the trust of global audiences, or it continues accelerating its own financial and cultural decline by producing flop after flop. At the current pace, the second scenario looks far more likely. Can anime maintain its dominance? The risks exist. Diluting its identity to cater to Western demographics, overproducing to the point of saturation and declining quality. Letting success breed complacency. But as long as anime stays true to what brought it here, these risks remain limited. And with Japan announcing plans to fund the industry even further in light of successes in 2025, the trajectory seems clear. The answer to the original question is actually quite simple. Hollywood spent billions of dollars and decades of goodwill, teaching its audiences to distrust them. Anime spent years quietly serving its fans and building their trust. Hollywood forgot the fundamentals. Anime picked them up and perfected them. One ignored its audience in favor of lecturing it. The other gave people exactly what they wanted and built an entire ecosystem to compound the gains. The market responded accordingly. The lesson is simple. Know your customer. Serve them authentically. Build trust through consistent quality. Stay true to your voice. Listen to feedback. Test before you scale. Work efficiently and never assume you're safe from competition. Do that, and you have every chance of winning big. Ignore it, and your replacement is already taking your place.